But we came with a couple questions too, so whenever we can always share that. And
you want? What do you want to do?
No,
first?
I want you to share first.
Sure.
Just your story. And
so I'm going to talk a little bit, and then
Please.
I'm going to probably show you a few things, and then we can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about.
Awesome.
That's cool. And just so you know, context-wise, I'm super ADD. So if I get up and start wandering around, ignore that. And if I start wandering off on another topic, then, shiny things just like, hey, get back. You can help me focus.
It's okay.
Although I'm also sleep deprived, so maybe it'll balance this out. I don't know. Twins. So just to give context, my story went to Pepperdine, which was awesome. I don't know if you guys have been to the campus. You should listen. It's beautiful. But got a degree in English, and it's kind of a combined degree in English and theater. And ended up teaching high school at Orange Lutheran in Orange, which was the high school I went to. So went away for 4 years, came back, and was a teacher at 22 years old, which was a huge mistake on the part of the administration. Who does that? Stupid hire a 22-year-old to teach 18-year-olds. Anyway, and my sister was one of my students and all of that. So it was like, and I look back, I'm like, what was their deal? But it was actually then I started my first week teaching high school. I started my master's in education program at Pepperdine and down at the Irvine campus. And at first, I only started because somebody had told me that if you have a master's degree, your salary goes up by $10,000. So I was like, sweet. I didn't bother to, by the way, check into that, and later found out it was totally not true at all until I was almost done with the degree. But in the process of that, I actually really fell in love with education and the education process. I've always been passionate about leadership. Even as a kid, I was that weird kid that would read the leadership books and just found that stuff fascinating because it was about connecting with people and understanding how people work. And so as I got into education, realizing it's kind of not that different. It's really, you start to for me as and maybe part of it's the way my brain works, but especially as I get older, I start to see how everything's just so related, and started working on this master's in education and just sort of falling in love with the educational process and the ways that you can be innovative in education and really in leading the lives of these kids and helping them to define who am I and what's important, even as an English teacher, and really helping them connect with the materials that we're talking about and the things that we're about. And really, in the end, a lot of that came down to storytelling, and that's just become such a huge kind of through line for me. So I did that for 3 years, taught high school. I always knew for whatever reason that I was not going to be doing that the rest of my life. When I started it, I thought maybe 5 years, made it 3. And then I left and started doing some church work, first with Your Linda Friends, which is where I met David and Angela. And have they met David? No. David's
I talked about him a bit.
Angela's husband.
Yeah.
And is where I met my wife as well. And then ended up working at Rock Harbor in Costa Mesa for 6 years, I think. And in the process of that was when I started doing my master's in organizational leadership here. And that one really just because I started reading the course descriptions and thought it sounded really great and wanted to learn these things. I had really no desire to get another degree, but hey, if it comes with it, sure. And so, and really starting to see how education and leadership are just hand in hand. And even, it was funny because one of the classes I think I took for my master's program here was almost identical to one of my education master's classes. And I loved seeing that. I loved seeing how you can be intentional in influencing people's lives through story, and how story can be a way that you can lead both in an organization or in the classroom or in any really circumstance. As I was working at Rock Harbor Church, we ended up doing kind of a cooperative project with a publishing company. And they hired me to be sort of the bridge between the two organizations, and so I was leading a curriculum development project where it was really feeding my ADD because I got to be writing and speaking and editing and writing videos and producing videos and producing kids' albums and all these fun things, and it was something different every day, which I loved. But again, now I'm kind of taking all of these things and seeing how they all fit together in creating this product or these products that would go out and be used by churches all over the country. And really, I think that was probably the point where I really got excited more and more about what eventually led to what I'm doing now, and specifically in using video and social media and all those types of things to communicate a story, to bring people into a story. And after I left there, did some consulting for some different organizations, agencies, and different things, leading projects or overseeing project development, and then now I'm running my own agency / production company, and we do a lot of different stuff, but mostly for me it comes down to I love finding people with really cool things that they're doing, letting them focus on doing what they're doing and finding ways to make them look good doing it, and that's just exciting for me. I'm not the guy that's sitting there designing things. I can't work Illustrator. In fact, my creative director gets angry with me if I even open Illustrator, because I'm going to ruin all his files, and or edit videos or any of that kind of stuff. But casting the vision for these things, getting the right people to bring the things that I kind of come up with or that I kind of envision to life, is my strength and what I really enjoy doing. The only really hands-on thing I'm great at is writing. I love writing, and so a lot of that. Along the path there, for whatever reason, seemingly very randomly a few years ago, I started training to get my pilot's license for helicopters, and became a pilot. I actually flew here tonight.
Did you really?
Yeah,
You're a
I didn't.
Stinker. So we could have commuted.
Well, it was going to be 2 hours to drive. I'm like, I can get there in 20 minutes. Okay, so
right? Right?
I landed at Brackett Airport.
Pomona.
And in Pomona, and
Did
then
you like Uber? Or
yeah,
something?
just Uber. It was like a 15
I mean, is that not
That's
funny?
crazy.
Look at their faces. They're like, what?
Yeah, so I started.
It
It was. What was that?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
The San Fernando Valley, I drive through that, have to drive from there over here. And
You coulda hitched a ride.
Traffic. Yeah.
You coulda hitched a
I'm
ride.
just watching us all sit down there.
So I wasn't going to, but I saw that
That's
it was
really
going to be
funny.
2 hours, and I was like, oh, I can stay at work a little longer and get some stuff done.
I
And
mean,
just screws up.
my
So,
gosh.
but I opened I recently, last month, started a flight school at John Wayne Airport as well. So that's kind of become a side project. I do a lot of another aspect of the production company agency is we do a lot of aerial video work and that type of thing too. So I've found ways to kind of bring all this stuff together to make it make some sense, instead of just be all these random tangent things that I like to do just because I'm ADD and I see this shiny thing and go running for it. But it's actually this last year in particular has been really fun to see how all of these seemingly random pieces that have been put out there, or that I've just, people have even going, you're crazy, why are you doing that now? And I'm like, I don't know, it just feels like the thing to do. It is all coming together to allow me to be more effective in storytelling and bringing people into stories. And even, I host a couple podcasts actually, one that Angela was a guest on my website, and then one that I shouldn't even tell you about because it's ridiculous. But a friend of mine and I, we make fun of The Bachelor, and so we started a podcast where we make fun of The Bachelor.
Tell the name.
Bros Before Rose.
I mean,
Yeah. So, and of course, of all the things that we do, we put the least amount of effort into that, and it's like taking off like crazy, and we're like, whatever. So we're literally like, we'll just do it for a season, and then and it just keeps growing. I'm like, I guess we have to keep doing this. People are like listening and writing in from all over the world, and but anyway, so that's just more fun side stuff. But yeah, so for me, it really comes down to whether it's we do everything really from social media, branding, design, video's really one of our strong suits. Social media is probably our other biggest strong suit. We do web design, we do all things, but really all around, and it's fun to lead a team all around. How do we effectively tell a client's story? How do we, and we're a little bit picky on even whose stories we're going to tell, because we need to be able to be excited about it. And what I've learned in that, in a long meeting I actually had this morning with a client that I never thought I would go with, is that sometimes you get excited not about their product but about the person, or about the challenge in it. So this morning, for instance, we were meeting with this tile company that hired us to do some videos a while ago, and instantly I was like, oh, tile, this is boring, I don't want to do this, you know? But as we got to know them, I just really liked the people, and then it was like, well, this could be a cool challenge to figure out how do we, you know, they actually are doing really cool work, and you see their installations and you're like, that's amazing that they can create this. How can we share that with people in a way that's compelling and interesting, and and I like that challenge. It's like, to me, when you get on the airplane and I got on Virgin America a couple years ago, and the seatbelt video comes on, and they did like a musical thing. Have any of you guys seen that?
Yeah.
And this was when I was flying all over the country for the curriculum stuff and speaking place. I was flying constantly, and so I just tune out normally. And I sat there, and I wouldn't watch it in my spare time, but I watched the whole thing, and at the end I'm like, I just watched that whole thing. Like, that is success right there, you know? If you can make that interesting, or, we did some videos for an insurance thing last year that was like, I couldn't believe how boring the content was, and I thought, how do I make this in? So we took if you know how insurance works, these people, they're insurance providers for schools. And so I used to be a teacher, so I know they would have us do these like in-service days where the insurance guys would come, and they all day talk to us about all the things and all, open enrollment and all this, and it was so boring and a waste of time for, as a teacher. I'm like, I have better things I could be doing. And so they're like, we want to create online videos for this so that people can engage, and so we don't have to waste their time, and we can make it a little more engaging, and they can choose which ones they want to watch to decide which policy, but whatever. And again, first thought was like, this is awful. But then I thought, well, if I could make that even just a little more palatable for, me back when I was a teacher, that would be a success. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of came up with this character, and we decided to do them animated, and came up with this character, and in every video we basically just destroyed this guy for all the reasons that he should have this type of insurance or this type of insurance. Like, he walks off a cliff and gets bitten by a shark or something like that, and it's like, oh well, if he had accidental whatever insurance. And they were kind of entertaining and kind of fun, and the company was so happy with them, and I'm like, all right, that is for me success, because using that creativity. But and I was actually going to show just this production reel. It's just a little overview of some of the work we did last year. We're actually putting together our reel for 2017 right now. But we there we go. Let's see. Just to give it a little. So that was, some of the work we've done for other clients and some fun projects that we got to do. But last year, I guess almost 2 years ago, I also started really becoming interested. I guess I've always have been, but a little bit more intentionally interested in how do I do this for myself? You know, and I know, like you had mentioned in the email, talking about personal branding, and I, you know, really what that comes down to again is how do we bring people into our own stories and into the things that are important to us and what's going on. And you know, I look at what are the tools we have at our disposal. What are the tools that I personally have? They're going to be different from what you have. Both resources I have, but even aside from that, more just what I bring strengths-wise, whatever that might be. And whether that's StrengthsFinder strengths or that's, you know, just like talents and gifts, and looking at that and going, how can I use that to put this out there, to define a little bit of who am I? What is my personal brand? What does that look like? And so, you know, I mentioned that I met my wife back when I was working at Friends Church. At the time I met Angela and David, and we met at the same time as you and David did, and then you guys got married like a year and a half later, right, or something like that. We got married 12 years later. So we had a bit of a different road there. But over all these times, you know, working at different churches and different organizations and different things, we made a lot of different friends in different areas. And when it came time to really, you know, we decided to get married, and we always had people asking as we'd see people like, oh, what's going on and what's going on in your life? And so I decided, I guess, she went along with it, to make some videos to be able to bring people into the story of what was happening in our life. And for me, it was just an opportunity to use the resources I have, but to also communicate who we are and what's important to us. And to us, something that's really important is people and community. And so, you know, in some ways, social media and everything helps us to stay connected to people who have moved away and are farther away, it's harder to be in contact with. And so this was sort of how we came up with it. And so we started creating these series of videos to kind of communicate the different things that were going on in our lives. And we did one for the engagement. I won't show that one because it's a little bit longer. But when it came time for our wedding, which Angela and David were at, we had something that we needed to sort of bring the whole community into before we walked down the aisle. And so I thought I'd share that one because it was a little bit more, it's a little shorter. So let's see. And we had a website where people could kind of check in on what was going on. Our whole thing was finally Barnes because 12 years. So there was the engagement one. So this, right before we walked down the aisle at our wedding, we showed this to everybody.
So we're sitting, waiting for the pastor to come out and all this, and then they said, here's, we're going to do a slideshow in advance. Okay. I mean, so everybody was like, what? We're dressed up waiting for them to walk down the aisle. How cool is that? Yeah.
So we had decided after we got engaged right before Christmas that we'd been together long enough, and so 3 weeks later, we took our wedding party and our family and went to Vegas, and then we just, for fun, decided, let's see if we can keep it a secret until the big wedding, and somehow we did.
I mean,
fortunately, we were all in the back, like, super nervous when we were showing the video, because, like, are people gonna, like, be angry, or, you know? But fortunately, everybody cheered, and it was great, so it went well. But it was fun to be able to kind of get creative and figure out. And in fact, yesterday we had a meeting with a new client who came in and said, "Hey, I saw that Vegas video you guys did for you and your wife, and that's why we're here. We want to hire you because if you can, you know, like make something like that fun and yet kind of romantic, but like exciting and, you know, energetic and all that kind of stuff. Like that's exactly what we're looking for." And I was like, "Great, you know, let's play." And so we kind of kept it going. I'll show one more. A year later, so that's actually a wedding video. So this was a year later.
1 year down.
Oh man, I can't believe it's been 1 year since our wedding. I mean, our second wedding.
It's just crazy though. We've had so much stuff happen in this last year. That wedding seems like a lifetime ago.
No, but it's been fun.
You know, I think I thought that there would be
Tell me that is.
more
That's
big
real.
things
Yeah.
that we find that we disagree on and have to like work through.
the name of the company.
Yeah, me too. But it didn't turn out to be any of the big things. It was like the little things we had to decide, like where to put the couch. But if it's too far forward, it gets crowded, so it just needs to go back a little bit just to get more room.
Yep. If it's back here, then if we have guests, we're too far away from them. It's too far from the table. It has to go back up here.
Wait, how did we resolve that one?
I'm pretty sure we got a tape measure and measured the difference between what you wanted and what I wanted and just put it right in the middle.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and then there's also the issue of where Rogue is going to sleep.
She should sleep in
with
her
us.
pillow.
What?
She should for sure sleep in her pillow.
Oh, come on. That face. I like how that one turned out.
Yeah.
And then there was the latest one. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to choose.
Maybe a gummy bear?
Huh. Yeah, I can see that. I'll tell you what it doesn't look like. It does not look like a baby.
I know. I can't believe it's our daughter.
Not used.
Okay, but what does this one look like?
Our son.
That's cute.
Holy crap,
That's cute.
So anyway, for me, I love that challenge. Whether it's for us personally and going, okay, what do we have to make this a little bit fun? Because we like to have fun and we like to bring people into things. And how can we use what we have and put that out on social media? And like, you know, we've had people kind of come up to us and see these videos and be like, oh, you should like try it. Those can go viral. They're really funny. And I'm like that's fine if it does, but that's not our goal. Our goal really is to have our community that's out there. We've got this community that's part of our lives, but they're all across the country. Allow them to feel part of what's happening, and you know, that's, I think we've got 6 of those going now. You know, we had one where after the kids were born and we told the names and all that. And so it's a fun challenge for me, and I think, you know, whether you're, you know, leading an organization or you're an athlete or you're just an individual doing whatever it is you're called to do, how do you represent yourself, and looking for the opportunities to do that intentionally, to really capitalize on who am I, what are the values that are most important to me, and how do I bring people into that story of what's happening in my life. And then from there, being able to also build off of that. For me, the things that I do, whether that's the flight school or the creative agency, they're extensions of that. They're just an extension of these passions that I have and these things that are important to me. And so when I get to do them, it's fun, it's exciting, and it's fun to be able to figure out how to apply that for somebody else. Free them up to, like we work with a restaurant that makes amazing food. And we're like, you guys just focus on making amazing food. You shouldn't have to worry about your social media or about your website. Like, you focus on doing that. We'll create all the stuff to make you look good doing it, and taking what we have to be able to do that. And so it's being able to look at what it is that you have, what it is that you bring, the tools that you have, the strengths that you have. And that's really what branding is all about. It's really about figuring out, how do I represent this company, this organization, this person, myself, and put that brand out there to allow people to connect with that and know what that really is all about. So that's the short version. But
I love that.
I can. Yeah, we can talk about whatever you
I
guys
love
want.
that. And when we started the class today, it feels like yesterday, right? When we started our class this morning, or this evening, we were talking about like our strengths. Everyone in here is taking Strengths Finder, and so we're just talking about resources for that. But right.
Of course they have.
Of course they have. Of course.
You would never allow them.
Right. And so I hope that part of it is like, learning our strengths, but also I love what you shared about what story we're telling and how our values play into that.
Yeah.
I don't know when I first started coaching if I really thought about that a lot in terms of, okay, what is my story and how am I? We didn't have. This was 1999, 2000 when I first went into coaching, so we didn't have that element of the social media and what that looks like. But now there's such responsibility and accountability for what we're disclosing, and then even what we were talking about, Laron, the first night, if someone tags us in something and then we're connected to it, that could be a hindrance for our brand or kind of our values when we're looking at getting jobs and things like that. But I love that you talked about this idea of our story and really what is it that we're trying to tell. Do any of you guys have questions in terms of like just that whole idea of what you're showing to people as you're looking at getting into the sport management field, or questions for Matt?
Did you, before you got into cinema and putting your story into that, did you have, what was something prior to that you thought about, maybe you could tell your story a little differently and then still have it echo as much as it has with this?
I think I tried when social media started coming around, and I think, as Angela was talking, whether it's social media, these are tools, right? And it's figuring with whatever tools you have, and 5 years from now, who knows? It might not be social media anymore. There might be some other tools, but like mid 2000s, people started really getting into blogging, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll try blogging and see if that's a thing, and it just never really connected for me. Like, I would try different things. I've always been because I love to write, I love to speak, I love to so figuring out how I could do those things, whether it was at church or in a way that I could teach. I taught for a year at the other Christian organization that has a university.
Concordia. We can say Biola here. It's okay.
I was there for a year, and right after I finished my master's here, and this is way better. But even just looking for those opportunities to bring people into that. But on a personal level, honestly, like it wasn't as easy until I kind of opened myself up. It was really realizing, gosh, I'm doing this for other people, and I'm not doing it for myself. It was a little bit probably backwards from the way that it should be. And because even if I didn't have all the equipment and a team of people that could help me edit things and whatever, I could get out. Everybody's got this thing shoots 4K video, and I got iMovie on my Mac, and I could put something together. And in fact, the people that we met with yesterday that had seen one of these videos and wanted to hire us, that's what they've been doing, and they've got a really successful following, and they shoot everything on their iPhone, and he's been editing on their iMovie thing, and he's like, we've reached this point where it's probably time to step it up. We've got 600,000 visits on our website last month. Probably should be a little more intentional than that, but it works. Like, we all have these tools at our disposal now. With technology, that you can kind of figure out what's the way for me, and where's my audience, where are the the people, and how can I, for me, and I think before it was just being active on Facebook and going, okay, well, I guess this is the way I reach my community that's out there, and putting out updates and that type of stuff. Yeah.
What do you do when you feel like, I mean, clearly you're creative, but when you maybe have kind of that block where you're having a hard time coming up with something, what's kind of the thing you go to that consistently kind of gives you inspiration and kind of a refresh?
Well, that never happens for me because, no, I'm just kidding. No, seriously, there are definitely, for me, there's two-part answer. One is, where do I go? I watch things. I look for things that I know are in my area. So just like you would watch, if you're a baseball player, you watch other baseball players to be inspired by them. And I'm sure there are days where you're just like, I don't feel like doing this, again, or I don't feel like I'm tired or whatever. And you watch another player who's just and you're like, oh man, for me, it might be seeing a movie or a TV show or going like, I know this person puts out good stuff, let's check in and see what they're doing, and getting inspiration from that. And then I get excited about, I saw that there, and I saw that there, and I saw that there. How can we bring that together? The way I keep these videos fresh for me is each one of them I try to think of like, okay, what's a different sort of style or twist I can put on the way we'll do this one. Okay, so this one was sort of almost, the engagement video we did was almost like documentary feel, where it was really following me around the day of and planning it, and then the actual thing. Then the Vegas one was a little bit more like sped up montage kind of thing going on, and with a little more humor. And then so each one kind of got a different flavor, and I would look at different things and go, oh, I'm gonna bring that into this, and see if I apply that to this other thing, you get something unique, and that's fun. And I think the other part for me is realizing how my brain works has helped me. The more I understand about myself, the more I can avoid some of those blockages. I know I work best under pressure. So I didn't show the one, but the one the last video we did, putting where we announced the names of the kids. I woke up. I've been thinking for days, like, we got to do something cool to announce the names of the kids. Like we've been like, everybody knows we're having a boy and a girl twin. So online, all of our friends and family, we're calling them Luke and Leia, and trying to pressure us to call them Luke and Leia, which I may or may not have started, and my wife didn't like. And so, everybody's, when are you going to tell us the names? And we didn't know. So we didn't choose them until 3 days after they were born. We had lists. We went the day they were born. We had 8 boy names and 8 girl names, and we kept trying them on for 3 hours at a time. Be like, let's try calling them that. And we're like, oh, that's great. And then 3 hours later, I'm done with that. No, so we go to bed thinking we got it. We figured it out. And we wake up the next morning. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. That's ridiculous. So that's just. We're like that. So, but I had been, like I've said, for days thinking, we got to figure out a way to do this. And I woke up one morning and was like, all right, the team's coming over. Once a month, I have my whole team over to my house, and we do a work day from my house, and we do social media shoots, and we do just more fun, get out of the office kind of thing. And they were coming over that day, and I just texted my creative director and said, bring the video camera. We're going to shoot a video. I had no idea what it was going to be, but now I'm on a deadline. I got 2 hours till they get here. I need to have something. And so I just sat down, and with the pressure, I know I work best under that. Started typing, and a script was done by the time they got there, and it was, we didn't, I think we shot it word for word exactly what we had said. So the more you can understand your strengths, your limitations, the things that motivate you, the situations that if you can be put in, you're going to do better. And a lot of that's just trial and error. Like I've tried, like when I was speaking around the country, like even figuring that out, like as a speaker, how I want to be somewhat planned out, but I know if I plan too much, if I do word for word, I'm awful. Because I'm sitting there, did I miss a word? Did I skip something? So, but where's that balance? And so I would try different things, like, okay, now I'm going to have an outline, but it's going to be a little more thorough outline. And then I'd go speak somewhere, and I'd be like, that was awful. And, and okay, so I got to tweak that. Or was that awful because of that? Or because I was jet lagged? Or because, and you're really always constantly evaluating and figuring out so that you can kind of mitigate those circumstances where you have those days that everybody has. The last thing I'll say about that, this is way more of an answer than you probably needed, is have good people around you, and don't get in the trap of feeling like it's got to be me. I got to be the guy that gives all the answers. And my wife is part of why we work in a lot of different ways. She also works with me at my company because she's great at, I'm out here with all these ridiculous ideas, and she's great at going, yeah, not that one. That'll never work. But in a way that I'm like, okay, cool, and helping me see, well, if you tweak this and figure out how to actually make things work, or push me in a certain direction, she can kind of get that perspective, and she's always right. So, with that, because she can kind of see from the outside, like, yeah, and she can connect things to details better than me. So finding the right people to surround yourself with is huge. Yeah.
I got a question, or I got a statement and 2 questions.
Let's do it.
The first one is a statement. I have a son too, and so when you went to think about the names and everything, me and my son's mother were bouncing back and forth like for months, like what we were going to name him. So we were like, while she was pregnant, we were like, okay, his name's going to be Caleb. I came up with Caleb.
Okay.
She was like, cool, Caleb. He was born. 20 minutes later, she was like, his name's Cameron. I'm like, is this gonna switch? Okay, cool. I got the middle name, so I was good.
Is it Cameron Caleb?
No, his name is Cameron Joel. I wanted a biblical name, but I kind of wanted to like
Yeah.
so Joel.
Yes. Yeah.
Good.
That's great.
That's good.
So my first question is, so you mentioned earlier that there are some companies that reached out to you, and you were like, no, I'm not. I don't. You didn't want to work with them or whatever, for maybe however you want to phrase that.
Yeah.
So there's pretty much a screening process that you guys go through to take on clients, right? You didn't want, so in that process, what do you look for to where you make a decision to where, you know what, we're not gonna do this one because of A, B, and C. And have you ever worked on a project to where it hindered or was a liability to your website or to your work or to what you do or to your image?
Yes.
That's a good question.
To answer your second question first, yes. And which was why I got to the point where I'm okay saying no to some people, even if they have a lot of money and they want to pay me a lot of money. Because sometimes it's just not worth it. Sometimes that's because they're a-holes and you don't want to work with them. Sometimes it's because I just can't. I'm pretty, I think I'm pretty creative, so I can usually find something to get excited about. If I really can't find anything to get excited about, then that would be. But mostly it's comes down to, I wish there was a test. It comes down to a gut feeling. And for me, learning to trust that gut feeling and that instinct. One thing I found, I'm always fascinated by things like StrengthsFinder or Myers-Briggs or all those things. The more I can learn about myself, the better. So, like I started counseling years ago. I wasn't like in crisis. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I gotta figure this thing out. It was just like, that sounds interesting. Let's go do that. And 10 years later, I was like, okay, I can probably stop now because it was constantly fascinating to like learn these things and like, oh, that's why I do that. Okay, now I can fix it. I loved it. I think it's just fascinating and make anything I can do to make myself a better person. But part of what I did at one point was I went and did a whole psychological assessment where they do these whole battery of tests of different things, and part of that's IQ and emotional, all these different things. And one of the things that I came out pretty strong on and learned a lot about as a result of, because I was curious about it, was in the area of recognizing patterns, and to the point where the person who had administered all these tests and was walking me through the results was saying, because I was surprised by that. I'm like, that doesn't sound like something I would be good at, is recognizing patterns and that kind of thing. And she goes, do you get strong gut feelings about things? And I was like, oh yeah, like crazy, and can't explain it or whatever. And she's like, and most of the time you're probably end up being right about them. And I'm like, yes. And she's like, that's not magic. That's not some thing. That is your subconscious recognizing patterns that it's seen other places and trying to get your attention with, hey, this is happening over here, you know, pay attention to that, don't do that, do that, you know, that kind of thing. And some of that stuff you don't find out till years later. And whether you're super strong in that area or not, like, that's what usually those gut feelings are. It's not some, like, because for me, for years, I would say, gosh, yeah, and I'm usually right about these things, but I can't make decisions based on that because I'm not going to trust some, like, feeling that I have. But once I start realizing, no, there's actually, like, science behind this, and it really freed me up to lean into that a little bit more and go, yeah, I mean, I may not understand exactly why, but there's something here that's telling me, like, walk away from this. It's not worth it. And you know, I can tell you, before I kind of gave myself permission to do that, we had a couple clients, more when I was consulting with other agencies, but where it was like, this scene on paper looks like the best opportunity. You know, it seems like a great idea, and there's just something where I was like, this is not a good fit. This is not going to work out well. This is, you know, but we'd go into it because on paper it looked great and there's lots of money, and how do you say no to that? And within 3 months you're just like miserable and realizing, for whatever reason, for one of them it was like this great restaurant chain, and they sandwich shop chain, and we thought, well, we love their food, we like their aesthetic, all these things, and we just got into it and realized they have very different ideas of what good design is than what we do. And so it was just this constant clash, and every time we would give them an idea, they'd shoot it down. And I'm like, well, why do you hire, you know, maybe you need to find somebody else, because we're clearly not, you know, there. Or they'd ask for 3 ideas for something. We give them one that's like amazing, that we were just like on fire about, one that was like, we'd be okay if they chose that, and purposefully give them one that was awful, just so that, you know, they'd have a throwaway one, and they'd always choose the awful one. And we're like, yeah, this isn't gonna work. So learning those things and giving myself permission to do that has been a little bit more freeing. And honestly, now I don't get that far into the conversation before I realize, yeah, this is probably not a great fit. And you know, the great thing, I don't know, but about business and stuff is, if it hasn't required me to say no a lot. It's more of just like, if I don't follow up on that one, and they usually don't, and then it kind of goes away. You know, it's just, I focus on the things that I'm like, I feel like I've got that gut feeling of this is the thing. Yeah, let's go there. Sorry, I give long answers.
No, that's good.
So you mentioned that you have your staff go to your house for once a month for your meetings and stuff to get out of your office. Mm-hmm. So you have your own facility and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. So what was the process that you went through to when you were like, okay, you decided that you wanted to like step away from teaching and whatnot and just pursue this career right here? And what was the process from starting your company from a small stance and then just expanding it, hiring new staff, and then getting a new facility?
This is not going to be helpful for you at all, because because as I'm thinking through the process, I tried to start one company with a friend of mine and we made. This was part of it was realize. Okay, so part of it was I started this company with a friend of mine 4 or 5 years ago, and realizing we kind of worked this idea of an office space and building out our own office space into a business plan for the company. We didn't need an office space as big as the space that we found. We found this 3,000 square foot space that was just a giant empty room, and we thought, overlooking a jewelry factory, like really random. But we're like, we both were creative. We're like, oh, this could be cool. We could put some offices here, and you know, Angela's been there. It's a cool place. I wanted a place that I look forward to going to every day. But for us, it was solving a problem in that we didn't have any money to hire people, and so we thought, if we built this stuff, put offices in here, we can sublet stuff, but sublet it to people that we would want to freelance, so that now our freelancers are actually working in our office, but not because they work for us, but just, you know, they're actually paying us to be here in our office, and then we can hire them and they're right there when we need them. Because with freelancers, you can't require them to work out of your office and all that kind of stuff. So it started that way. That company did not last long. My partner got very distracted and went off doing other things, and we kind of dissolved it. And so my new company sort of took over that space a year and a half, 2 years ago, and that's sort of that. So it wasn't sort of a traditional, like, okay, we started out small, working out of my home, and then grew to a place where we could do this. We kind of did that backwards. So that's why I said it's probably maybe not that helpful. But, you know, creative problem solving, you know, for us that was like, oh, this could work out so well for everyone. And we host events there and stuff. In fact, Angela was talking to me today about we're having a Christmas party on the 7th. It's also a fundraiser for CASA, which is Court Appointed Special Advocates of Orange County. They work with kids in the foster system, and so we put that on every year, and it's like a toy drive thing. But we host events there, but we also host workshops for people, creative people, on different things like storytelling or social media or video or different things, so that we can kind of, make it a place. And then we also have a studio in there that we rent out for video and all that kind of stuff. So we really looked at how can we maximize this and kind of have a creative solution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you guys are all welcome to come to the Christmas party if you want.
I told Matt, I looked on the website, I was like, can we invite them to the Christmas party?
Yeah,
Because
of
it's a
course.
volunteer and it's a fundraiser for kids, and that would be a good another check opportunity. But I was thinking too,
Yeah.
I was very impressed just coming in and seeing the space and seeing
Mhm.
where you have the podcast and the recording studio and just all those things, because I feel like even on the NCAA, if you go on their website, they have a lot of, I think I embedded it in either Unit 2 or Unit 3 or Unit 4. They have a lot of links to coaches who are doing podcasts now and coaches who are doing these live conversations on compliance issues. So I don't know. I don't know that I had ever been exposed to a space like that with the mindset of coming from like a sport practitioner or sport manager. Like, how would you actually utilize something like that? And so, but do you guys ever follow any coaches that have podcasts or?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so it's very, for me, that was very new. But that might be interesting to look up too and find out, like within the NCAA or even the universities now, they do a lot of not just post-game recaps, but that where the coaches themselves have their own show. I know our softball coach at Notre Dame has her own channel show that she does, things at, and it was really interesting. So yeah, if they ever could go and like even just walk through the space
Absolutely,
when you guys
anytime.
were there,
Yeah.
it would just be just kind of interesting.
And Angela was a great guest on my podcast.
Oh, my
You
goodness.
guys should check that out.
Yeah.
She was one of my favorites.
Oh, that was fun.
I found that interesting with your business, how you basically got the facility and stuff like that, because I have a training club, and then that's why I asked, because a lot of questions have been asking me, like, do you have a facility? And it's like, well, I have a training base, which is at Survey High School.
Okay,
I
yeah.
coach at Survey.
Okay.
But I don't, but as the demand has started to increase, it's like, hey, I want more strength conditioning, stuff like that. So it's like, well, I can't use a high school facility and I can't go to a gym.
Right.
So it's like, I need to get my own place so
Mm.
I can house these students and stuff like that. And I was thinking about subletting it to different trainers and stuff like that too.
So I have a friend who is a trainer who did exactly that. Not working with high school students, but he and a buddy bought their own space and started this gym, but they each run their own. It was confusing for me at first because the gym has a name. I think it's like Definition Fitness or something like that. But then he has his business there for his clients and stuff. The other guy has his, and then they allow other trainers to come in and sublet the space out as well.
That's clever.
And so these trainers, they have, they pay for have certain time slots and that kind of thing, and it works out great. And they actually just about 6 months ago moved to a larger facility because they were packed out where they were in this. It was like, a lot of those gyms, it's like a little warehouse space or something like that. Yeah. So they moved to a bigger one. But he's killing it with that. And I love that creative problem solving. I love okay, how can we? But sometimes it's really good to ask somebody who's in a completely separate thing. Like, hey, here's my situation over here. I know it's sports and you're not in the sports area, but maybe just the concepts they can help, with an outside perspective, go, oh, what if you did this? And I find that that's helpful for me, is to get those outside. And I find for what we do, my favorite clients are usually the ones I know nothing about what they do, because then if I'm really excited about representing them and getting their story out there, it's easy for me to go, okay, well, what got me excited about that? Okay, well, let's share that with people. We go, as a team, we go, okay, so there's something about that we're all excited about this client. Let's write those down. Well, those are our values that we want to communicate, because those are things, and a lot of times it's not the things the clients would have thought they were. A lot of times we go in and go, no, well, what's most exciting about you is this, and they're like, oh, really? We didn't even think that was a big deal at all. That's just what we do. And it's like, no, that, and we help them realize you got to highlight this because people are going to really respond to it. We never would have thought of doing that, but they need that outside perspective. It's really helpful.
I would say that's part of the intention, I think, of even having you come in, because you don't come from like
Right.
a coaching background, but just to have a totally different perspective, that if we can glean parts of it and implement it in what we're doing or our
Mhm.
knowledge base, I thought that would be interesting. But but I want to honor your time too and get back to your babies. But I don't feel bad for you now that you're getting your helicopter flying home. My gosh. But yeah, we have a little something for Matt. Thanks for sharing. This was
Oh,
really
yeah.
I feel like I'm already taking notes in my mind about this idea of storytelling and
Do they
what
have
we're
my
doing.
email
And
address?
I think it's on that group email, but if it's okay, I'd love to forward it to them again.
Absolutely, yeah. If you guys have any questions or you ever want to run things by,
Mhm.
I love brainstorming ideas, all that stuff. So
And then your actual facility is in
is-
Costa Mesa?
it's like standing on a
Indiana?
Costa Mesa border.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's back behind the IKEA on the
Mhm.
405.
So it'd be
if you know
fun to
how that
kind of
is.
walk through and
Yeah,
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah.
Or Matt, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.